I'm gonna show y'all a picture of this little man. So how are you feeling?
I feel good. You know, I'm a little sore, but overall, I'm happy, and you know, just my happiness outweighs the pain. So,
yeah. So have you like I know having a child myself, it's like that moment when you see your child, it's really a life-changing moment, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is, and you know, what was so funny is that when I was laying on the C-section table, I was so numb, I couldn't feel anything, but I heard the doctor say, okay, I see the head, and then I zoned out again, and before you knew it, I heard the baby crying, and they brought the baby to me, and it was like, I saw the love of Christ. I saw the love of Christ, and I heard the love of Christ just by hearing my son cry and seeing him, like this little egg. It started off so small, and now it's a human being. So it just changed me. I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
You know, one thing that I forgot to tell you when you were calling me and telling me, you know, that it was time that you're going to have the baby was, I always say to people, when you first hold that baby, take the time and smell that baby's breath, because the smell of that baby's breath is going to tell you exactly what heaven smells like.
Wow.
You know, it's like
wow.
The body is clean and pure. It's never eaten on its own. You know what I mean? It's like
an awesome experience.
It is. It's amazing, isn't it?
It
So there's a verse in the Bible, John 16:21, and it says, "When a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come," which means your life is leaving you. You're going to be a part of this new life now with this new child. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born into the world. Okay, and I bring this verse up because before the baby came, no, actually it was right after the baby came, and I was talking with you, and I said, you know, sometimes when women have C-sections, they have to continue having C-sections, but there are other times that, you know, they are able to have, give birth naturally, which is really, you know, what you wanted. You wanted to give birth naturally, and that was kind of sad too. And then you said, I really don't want to have any more children, you know.
Yeah.
And so then, like a few days later, you know, a week or so went by, and you say, I just look at him and I love him so much. I think I want another one.
Yeah.
So it's so I'm thinking, this girl's either suffering from postpartum depression.
Wow. But what was so interesting is that I kept praying, you know, God, please let me have an easy labor, easy delivery. And that was my prayer. Right. Which it was easier because I didn't have to feel any contractions. I didn't have to feel any of that. You know, I had my C-section. I was completely numb. The worst part was just getting the spinal tap. So it was really easy. He answered my prayer. He just didn't answer it in the way that I thought he would. And I was like, no more. I'm not going through this anymore. Now I'm ready for a whole nation of kids. I'm ready. I want a whole nation of them. So I don't know. Keep bringing them on. I don't care about having C-section. I will do it all over again.
Now, I think that, you know, as good of a person as you are, and there's just so, I mean, just everybody in the world, I think that one of the big concerns when you have children is, how do I bring this child up to be a responsible member of society, someone that lives right and has good character and walks and talks in the way that God would want them to. And I know that talking with you since you've had the baby, you know, that has been a big concern of yours. You know, and you've shared with me a lot of your thoughts and experiences. So that's what today's show is going to be about. We're going to talk about how you bring your child up to walk in the world, you know, and teach them about, you know, facing the obstacles outside. But one thing that I will say is I have one child of my own, and she was a little rebellious at a time in her life, you know, at young teenage years, and I had to be very hard disciplining her. But the one thing that I can say is that it starts in the home.
It does.
You know, you're going to have a lot of obstacles in your way. They're going to get outside influences. You're going to get people playing interference, but it all starts in the home, and you have to be true to yourself.
You have to be.
be honest. When they say be honest, it doesn't mean just being honest with other people. It means being honest with yourself also. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, what you've experienced since you've given birth and brought Jameer home.
Well, with me, I've looked back like how I was raised. I thought about that a lot and how I was going to raise him differently and things like that. I think for me is to show him love, just to love on him, not to spoil him, but to love on him, hug him, kiss him, tell him I love him, pray with him.
That's the key. Don't spoil them.
Exactly. Don't
It's
spoil
hard.
him. Don't spoil him. It's really hard for me because it's my first, and you know, I've always wanted a child. We prayed for a child, and now I have this little bundle of joy. So I want to spoil him, but I'm like, I will suffer consequences later. So I don't spoil him. But however, I've been having praise and worship with him. Although he's too young to understand, it doesn't matter because as he grow up, he'll understand. And
I don't really think I don't agree with what you just said, that he's too young to understand.
Really?
Because I really feel like children mimic. They see you and they watch what you do, and you think right now his mind is developing, but you're bringing that to him, and he's learning what he likes and dislikes already when he comes out of the womb. So that time that you spend with him and you sing them songs, when he hears it again, he's gonna be like, you know, like my nephew.
Well, that's turned out to be true actually,
Yeah.
because one night he was crying, and just the day before we were, you know, singing a little children's song with him, Jesus Loves Me and stuff. And then before you know it, we had like a whole worship service going on. I put on my album, Tasha Cobbs, and was having praise and worship, and he fell asleep on me. So now whenever he's whining and he's fussing, I put the album on and I sit him close to the phone so he can hear the album play on my phone, and he falls asleep.
It calms his spirit.
Wow, so I never thought about it. I'm
Yeah.
thinking as far as him, you know, understanding the words and what I'm really doing, but you're right, it does calm his spirit. Wow,
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that.
Well, you know, it's like my nephew Corey. He was born when I was 15 or 16 years old, and I used to spend a lot of time with him. I just used to play with him and just lay on the floor. And when I would make little sounds with my mouth, he would start to mimic, you know, and he would go, hoo, 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 you know, and just make these little sounds, you know, mimic. So I really feel like from the moment that they're born, you have to that's when you start training them, the moment they come out of the womb. Okay. You know, don't say, well, he's too young to teach him how to clean his room. You have to give them instruction, you know, by 2 years old, if they're pulling their toys out, they should be able to put them away. You have to teach them that at home. Yeah.
That's true. But I love the fact that my husband and I are having worship with him. And even when we were in the hospital, you know, one of the nurses came in and she wanted to check his vitals and stuff. And before she was going to take him, I was like, well, let me go ahead and pray with him, because they were going to take him to the nursery so I can get some sleep. And she stood there while I prayed with my son, and I'm thinking, like, this lady probably think I'm crazy, but prayer is everything. It really is. Prayer and praise is everything to us. And I prayed with him, you know, it was normal, and the next day, you know, my doctor came in, Dr. Pitts, he's a praise and worship, he's just so awesome. And we were in there having worship and praise, and he was just happy. He's a happy little baby. He don't give me any problems, so I'm hoping that has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. You know, in the Bible, in Luke 18:16, it says, but Jesus called them to him, saying, let the children come to me, and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of God.
Wow.
And then also in, where did I see that at? It says something here about grandchildren in the Bible too. Don't know if you know that. Here you go. At the time the disciples came to Jesus, saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.
Wow.
Now when I read that verse, what I love about it is that it tells you, when you have children, be a child with them. Like, don't when that nurse is looking at you and be proud that you're praying with your baby.
And I was.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Be proud that don't be afraid to go out and play in the rain. Don't worry about what other people think about you splashing in puddles. You know, when I'm in the grocery store, I remember being in the grocery store one time and I saw this woman singing with her children in the grocery store and people were kind of giving her crazy looks, but I thought, you know, how fun is that? She is just enjoying the presence of her children, loving her children, and teaching them. You know, you have fun in the world, and as long as you know you're doing right, don't worry about what other people think.
Exactly.
Don't stand in shame. As long as you know you're doing right, don't stand in shame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I was dealing with before, J. Mary went into the world. I've been reading this book about boundaries and how to set boundaries between friends and relatives and whatever it is. And I've seen throughout our generations of the family of children being raised the wrong way. I'm not going to put any names out there, but just certain people, they would allow their kids to do this, to drink beer, and they would, by the age of 3, they think it's funny to teach them curse words and stuff. And I'm thinking, although this is my family, they're my family and they're my friends, I have to raise my son different. And Satan tried to plant seeds in my head like, well, you think you're better than them and they're going to reject you and things like that. But I couldn't worry about that. Like you just read, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to be a child with my child, at the same time being a parent to him and teaching him the right way, regardless of what anybody has to say, because my husband and I are responsible for him and no one else is.
That's exactly right,
so, that's just how I feel about the whole situation.
Right. You're really not, you have to be a friend to your child on some level, but it's really more about teaching your child what's right and wrong, because they're gonna come to a point in their life where they're gonna be trying to find their own way in the world, and they're gonna be getting different insight from different people, and they're gonna form their own opinions. But the point is just to always guide them in the right direction and stand your ground with them, and it's always about showing them love. All the time.
Love is the greatest commandment. It's one of the greatest things you can give to somebody.
Oh yeah. But you were sharing a story with me about, how you brought Jameer home and you're spending time with him, and you share a little bit about that.
Well, I've just been loving on him. One thing that I lacked as a child, my mom passed away when I was 3 and having to live with my aunt. I never had that bond. I never had that love where I could just be wrapped up in somebody's arms and talk to, and when I'm crying and telling me that it's okay, or praying with me, praising with me. And I've been doing that. Everything that I've been lacking, well, almost about everything that I felt like I lacked as a child, I make sure he get, even as a baby, because he'll remember that.
Oh, yes, he will.
And when he grow up, I don't want him to, resent me as his mom. I want him to know that I love him and that he can always come to me and talk to me about stuff. You have to make them feel comfortable.
Oh, yes.
And one thing about me is that I didn't feel comfortable when I was growing up. So I turned to other people. I turned to the streets to basically mold me into who I became at that time. And if you don't show them the love that they need and you make them feel comfortable that they can talk to you, they're going to go astray. Because I did. I know I did. And I don't want that for him. I don't want that for Jay here. I want him to feel comfortable with talking to me. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do. I'm going to raise him like the Bible told me to, and let God do the rest.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree. And in the Bible, it says in Ephesians 6:1-4, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord.
I love that verse. And I, just speaking of that verse and thinking about it, meditating on it, yesterday I saw something that was quite disturbing to me. And I'm going to share a little bit with you, but it was this guy, well, the friend of a guy, he had his son, and they were outside, and the guy, he was smoking his cigarette and everything, and the little boy mimicked everything he said, everything he did. He was rapping like him. He had his pants sagging, no more than 3 years old. And I looked at it through my spiritual eyesight, and I'm like, that's very sad, you know, that this boy is teaching him how to do all of these negative things. So a few minutes later, the dad arrives home, and the guy leaves, and the little boy is screaming. He's crying for him. He really didn't want him to leave him. So the guy, he left, and the father and the little boy came downstairs, and the little boy, he was being a child. He was touching things outside on the ground, and the dad whooped him for it. And the little boy started crying. Then the dad beat him again because he started to cry and sent him in the house. And I'm thinking that is so sad. If you don't get love from your mom and your dad, then you turn to somebody else. And they can treat you nice, but they can still be teaching you negative things. That's why it's so important to show them love and to let them know who they are. As far as Christ is concerned, you're a child of the King. You don't have to participate in these things. And it's important, too, that as a parent, you surround yourself around people that want the best for you, that's going to strengthen you, as well as teach your child. Because it takes a village to raise a child. And although you're the parent, you still have to surround yourself around godly people. It's very, very important.
Oh, yes.
It's
And
very important.
that's what it means about being the church. It's surrounding yourself around people that have the same goal as you, and that is to walk in the Lord. So everybody that you have with you, we were talking about, before the show we were talking about, you know, social networks and people posting stuff on your social networks, and how, you know, you have to monitor your Facebook pages and stuff because of all the negativity and the foul language and stuff that people post on there that you don't want to see. And it's the same thing with your children. You know, you have to be very, very aware of who your children are hanging around with, and what they're doing and who they're spending time with.
Exactly.
You have to monitor the television. I mean, what has TV programming gone to?
Oh, it changed. You know, I tell my husband all the time, I said, think back, you know, about 10 years ago, just think. No one really cursed on TV, and if you heard a curse word, everybody stopped. Like, oh my gosh, did you just hear that? Now they just blatantly do it.
I know.
They have cartoons that try to mimic Christ and just blasphemy. It's so sad, and it's cartoons. Kids love cartoons, and they make it seem like it's Adult Swim, you know, adult cartoons. No, but a child don't know what's adult or not. If it look like a cartoon, they're gonna watch it. And if you're not in their room, they're gonna watch it, and they're picking up that stuff. It's spirits in television as well as music. You have to be mindful of what you let your children listen to. And some people that I know, I told my niece, I said, you know every song on the radio, but do you know your alphabets? Do you know this? Do you know that? And I'll pick on her a little bit. I'll give her a math problem or something that I know she's not able to understand. And I'm like, well, you don't know this, but you know this song. That's not right. And I'll make her feel a little bad, but then she'll start talking to me and let me know what's going on. And I just like music and everything like that. And that's one reason why I love making music, because my nieces and nephews love it.
Yeah.
They love it, and it's positive. It teaches them about Jesus, and they want to learn more. So you just have to be mindful of what you let them hear and what you let them see and who you surround yourself with.
And one thing I love that Jeremy Armstrong pointed out when we did one of our shows was every night he makes sure before he goes to bed that he goes up and he prays over his children. Every night, you know, he prays for their safety, their spirituality. He prays to be a good parent. He prays for instructions on how to guide them, and he prays for them to have the strength to be able to pick up on his wisdom and to follow him. And I think that's real important for us. I mean, I wasn't raised in that kind of environment, but I prayed a lot about my daughter, and I think that is a very important thing that we can do for our children.
Is to pray with him.
You know, and my stepmother told me one time, she said, I was telling her how sometimes when I would come in, when I was visiting my dad one time when I lived in Tennessee and came here to visit, and I had gone out with a cousin, and I came in and I went in the room and I crawled in bed with Caitlin, and I started talking to her and telling her I missed her while I was out, but she was asleep. And I said, I know it sounds silly that I do that. And she said, no, it doesn't. She said, they know your voice, they know your sound because they were in your belly.
Yep.
And they will recognize it, you know. So I think that is probably some of the best advice I could give is to follow Jeremy Armstrong's teaching of never forget to pray over your children, you know. Go up and see them no matter how late it is. If you're working late and they're in bed, or you're going to school and they're in bed when you come home, always go up and talk with them and you know, give them that kiss goodnight and pray over them.
And it just makes you feel so warm inside.
Yeah.
All that love, you know that they love you and you love them, and you just go and kiss them. It's like you don't want to leave their side.
Yeah.
And you know, I do that to Jamie, and he's only almost 2 weeks old, but I love praying with him. I love kissing him. Sometimes I just want to wake him up out of his sleep just so I can talk to him and hold him. So, and he does know my voice.
Another thing too is I think that it's important that I never do baby talk.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's very important that you be upfront with your children. If they come to you and they hear something from school, whether it be of a sexual nature, about drugs, regardless of what it is, if they hear it, you need to be honest with them and address it with them. Do it on their level. Use medical terms if you have to, but be honest with them about it. Because if you don't, they're going to learn it on the streets.
Exactly.
You know, and I have a girlfriend named Gail, and our daughters grew up together, and that was one thing that Gail always did, and I was always comfortable about my daughter being around Gail and her children, were that Gail had other children. Jessica was the oldest, and then she had Kevin and Cody, and you know, when Jessica would hear stuff at school and she would come home and she would say this or that, you know, she would say, you know, to her mom, you know, why are they saying that when that's really not how it is? And, you know, and Gail would sit down and really have a talk with her about, you know, the anatomy of her brothers, and she was very, very open and honest, and I think that is very, very important, because if you try to be sneaky and tell them something different, they're going to learn it somewhere else.
Exactly.
And they're going to
start thinking you're lying to them.
Exactly.
Wow.
And you know, if you're telling them lies and then you're trying to tell them about Jesus, you know what I mean? And they're going to say, well, how I know this is really true, you know? So I think it's really important to just be open with them, and don't baby talk them, and don't beat around the bush with them. You know, you can still have fun with your kids, but I think that when it comes to really deep subjects like that, because they learn about sex in school nowadays, and they learn it very young. And you know, I think it's real important that when they bring it to you, you sit down with them and you shoot them straight with it. And even if you have to get out a medical book and explain it, really seriously, explain it to them in a medical book. You know, if they start asking about babies or whatever, you know, just be upfront and honest with them. Yeah. So, any advice to any other new moms that are out there, since you're a new mom of how many weeks now?
Almost 2 weeks.
Almost 2.
Wednesday
Like
will be
brand
2 weeks.
new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm just bubbling over with joy, and I've only been here for about 40 minutes, and I'm like, oh, I miss my baby. Oh, I wonder what he's doing. But the advice that I would give to all the new moms or soon-to-be moms is, even while your baby's in your womb, remember what you do. One thing I've noticed, I love praise and worship music. I love all types of music, but of course it's Christian gospel, Christian rap, Christian praise, Christian rock, whatever. And I would play it in my car, and it's like, now I can play some praise and worship and my baby go to sleep. That is so awesome. That is so unreal to me sometimes. I'm like, did he really remember what I was listening to, or things like that? But just pray with your baby even while he's in the womb. Talk to him, love on him. So when he come out, or when she come out, do the same thing, and they'll remember that. They'll remember that. That is so awesome. And by the way, the more that you do with them, they get to know you more. They get to know your voice more. And sometimes I will come in the room and I'll see him squirming and stuff, and I'll start talking to him. And because he knows my voice, he'll like open up his eyes and want me to, come pick him up. And I just think that's so awesome that you have somebody. Of course, God is going to love you unconditionally. But when God blesses you with a baby, especially with us, we tried for a year and a half to have a baby, and now we have this bundle of joy. It's just so awesome. It's so overwhelming. I'm just so happy.
Yeah.
So just continue to pray with your kids, continue to love on your kids, and like she said, be honest.
You don't.
Be honest.
Your life does not have to change. A lot of people say, "Oh, it changes your life."
No,
It does change your life to a degree. You know, there's diapers and there's spit up and there's all that stuff. But you don't have to stop being you. And you know, if you're the good person that you are, take your baby with you. Take your baby to church. Take your baby to the retreats. Take your baby, take your baby to the bookstore. I love it when I see parents with their kids at like libraries and stuff like that. But, take your baby with you and let them see that they are you're their best friend. You know what I mean? And let them see that they can come to you for anything. And they'll enjoy spending that time with you. But I want to thank you all for tuning in today to Coffee and Christ, and we want to hear your thoughts, Let us know what you think about the show, how we're doing. If you have any topics that you would like to have us cover, send us those topics. Shoot us an email. I'll have all that information at the end of the film, so shoot us an email and let us know, and we'll be glad to cover those topics for you. And we will see you again on the next edition of